No matter how much power you've got, an aeroplane's speed is limited by its shape. The real headache for Concorde designers was that the things that stop you flying super fast are what keep you in the air. Your wings. The designers looked to the military. To slip through the sound barrier, fighter jets were using streamlined, wafer-thin delta wings. Perfect for nimble military planes, but would they work for a large commercial airliner?
This is one of 4 prototypes built to find out whether or not supersonic passenger travel could become a reality. And what you see before you is the designer's conundrum. A delta wing which performed beautifully at Mach 2, but which unfortunately has lousy lift characteristics at slow speed.
Designers would need to make their delta wing act like a normal wing. And how do they work? Well, pay attention, because here comes the clever bit.
Wings all work on air pressure, all of them. The air, as it hits the leading edge of the wing, splits into 2. One goes over the top, one bit goes underneath the bottom. If you notice, the bottom is flat, the top is curved. But a very clever guy discovered that both parcels of air arrive at the back of the wing at the same time. Therefore, this one, which has to travel further, it must go faster. If it goes faster, the molecules all get spread out. That means less pressure on the top, means more pressure on the bottom relatively, and bingo, the aeroplane lifts into the sky, as long as you've got enough speed.
So why not stick a massive jet on a Tiger Moth and go supersonic that way?
Well, the lift characteristics of the Tiger Moth with 4 wings worked very well at slow speeds like this. But the drag characteristics were appalling. The thing is a flying brick.
And bricks don't go supersonic. So if a traditional high-lift wing creates too much drag, how did Concorde designers get slow speed lift from their slippery, thin, supersonic delta wing? The answer was in the wind tunnel. After 5,000 hours of testing, they crafted a carefully curved, drooping wing, which caused the air to rapidly spiral across the top. These vortices created the magical reduction of pressure at slow speed and high angles of attack that was needed to get Concorde into the air. Phew, that was the easy bit. Now all they needed were the power plants.
If I was an air molecule, I'm about to have a very interesting life, because I'm about to go into the front end of a Concorde jet engine. The irony is, though, that in order to get supersonic thrust out of the back of the engine likes subsonic airflow. It needs a nice, smooth passage of air all the way through it. Unfortunately, if it gets supersonic air going in the front, it has the equivalent of engine indigestion. It's called surge, and it can destroy a jet engine in seconds. To solve this problem, and to get the correct kind of performance out of the engines, the aerodynamicists and the designers came up with what can only be described as a supersonic cat flap. Essentially, when the aeroplane started to go supersonic, then huge quantities of air came in that the engine couldn't cope with, so down comes the cat flap. It was actually called a ramp. So the ramp comes down into the airflow, which slows it down, and as a byproduct also does some of the engine's work for it, because as the air whacks into the ramp, it's also compressed, which is one of the jobs of the engines in the first place. So they extracted even more efficiency out of an already very efficient engine.
Concorde's maiden flight in 1969 was a landmark. After 14 years of planning, France and Britain had built the impossible, a supersonic passenger aircraft.
This is one of aviation's sacred sites, the flight deck of a Mach 2.2 Concorde.
If I was to make a comparison with rock and roll, I would say that everything on this aeroplane goes to 11, just like the apocryphal amplifier in Spinal Tap. But if you want to see something that really is extraordinary, and you won't find it on any other civilian aeroplane, Check out the Mach meter. It goes to Mach 2 and beyond. Interesting fact. As long as Concorde was in service, the RAF never had a single aeroplane that could catch it.
In the 1960s, Europe and America were competing to build the jet plane of the future. Britain and France were convinced speed was essential. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Boeing had decided it was time to build the 747.
The Boeing 747 was going to be the world's biggest airliner, and in order to build it, they had to build the world's biggest building. This one!
And no, that's not a toy truck. The building is massive.